In the chaos of a New York emergency room at 3 a.m., Nurse Lena Carter made a choice that would shatter every wall she'd ever built around her heart. The man bleeding on her table wasn't supposed to live through the night. He wasn't supposed to refuse treatment. And he definitely wasn't supposed to be the most dangerous crime lord on the East Coast, a man whose enemies would soon put a target on her back, whose protection would become her prison, and whose cold empire would burn for one thing only: her safety. Before we dive into this story of blood, power, and impossible choices, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let me take you into Lena's world, where one night changed everything. The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's emergency room buzzed with the same relentless frequency as the monitors tracking patients who'd probably die before morning. Lena Carter moved through the controlled chaos with practiced efficiency, her scrubs stained with the night's casualties: a stabbing victim from Hell's Kitchen, an overdose from the Lower East Side, a car accident that had brought in 3 mangled bodies at once. This was her world, had been for 6 years. The overnight shift that nobody wanted, the cases that made seasoned doctors flinch, the endless parade of New York's broken and bleeding. She'd chosen this life deliberately, seeking the kind of exhaustion that left no room for memories, no space for the past that still woke her at 3 a.m. in cold sweats. "Lena!" Marcus, the triage nurse, called out from the entrance. "Incoming! No ambulance, no call ahead, just walked in." She glanced at the clock. 2:47 a.m. The witching hour when the truly desperate showed up. "How bad?" "Bleeding. Won't say from where. Won't give a name." Marcus lowered his voice. "And Lena, he's got 4 guys with him. Big guys. The kind that make you nervous just looking at them." Lena grabbed a fresh pair of gloves, snapping them on as she pushed through the double doors into the triage bay. What she saw made her stop mid-step. The man sitting on the examination table wasn't slumped in pain like most patients. He sat perfectly upright, his posture military straight despite the blood soaking through his white dress shirt. His suit jacket lay draped over the chair beside him. Expensive, she noted automatically. Italian, probably. Custom tailored. But it was his face that caught her. Sharp features carved from stone, dark hair pushed back from a high forehead, and eyes the color of winter ice that tracked her movement with predatory focus. He couldn't have been more than 35, but those eyes held something ancient and dangerous. Around him, 4 men in dark suits stood at precise intervals. Not sitting, not relaxed, standing guard. "I'm Nurse Carter," Lena said, approaching with deliberate calm. "I need to know what happened." "Accident," the man said. His voice was deep, accented, Russian, maybe Eastern European, and carried an authority that made it clear he wasn't used to being questioned. "What kind of accident?" "The kind that needs stitches, not questions." One of the guards shifted slightly, and Lena caught the outline of a shoulder holster under his jacket. Her pulse kicked up, but she'd learned long ago not to show fear. Fear made predators bite harder. "I can't treat you without knowing what I'm dealing with," she said evenly, "and I need your name for the records." "No records." The man's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "No doctors. No questions. You clean it, you close it, I leave." "That's not how emergency rooms work." "Tonight it is." He met her eyes, and something in that gaze made her breath catch. Not threat exactly, something worse. Absolute certainty that what he said would happen, because he'd decided it would. Lena glanced at Marcus, who stood frozen in the doorway, then back at the bleeding man. Every instinct screamed at her to call security, to refuse, to follow protocol. But something else whispered underneath those instincts, the same something that had made her choose the overnight shift, the trauma cases, the impossible situations where she could lose herself in pure action. "Fine," she said quietly. "But if you collapse from blood loss, I'm calling for help whether you like it or not." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I won't collapse." Everyone says that right before they hit the floor. This time he did smile, though it held no warmth. "Not everyone is me." Lena moved to his side, her hands already reaching for the blood-soaked shirt. "I need to see the wound." He didn't move to help her, so she began unbuttoning his shirt herself, trying to ignore the way the guard's attention sharpened, trying not to think about the weapon-shaped bulges under their jackets. Her fingers worked quickly, professionally, peeling away fabric that stuck to skin with drying blood. The wound revealed itself inch by inch, a deep laceration running from his left ribcage to his hip. Not a surgical cut, not an accident. This was a knife wound, deliberate and vicious, the kind meant to gut someone and let them bleed out slowly. "Jesus," she breathed. "No doctors," he repeated, mistaking her shock for the impulse to call for help. "I'm not calling anyone." Lena's training kicked in, overriding her fear. She grabbed gauze, pressing it against the wound to assess the bleeding. "But you're lucky. Another inch and it would have opened your peritoneum. You'd be dead already." "Lucky," he echoed, that humorless smile returning. "Yes, that's what I am." She worked quickly, cleaning the wound with saline, her hand steady despite the surreal nature of the situation. The man, whoever he was, didn't flinch as she irrigated the deep gash, didn't make a sound even when she probed to check for severed muscle tissue. "You need local anesthetic," she said. "This is going to hurt." "It already hurts. Do it." Lena prepared the lidocaine injection, but when she turned back to him, he shook his head once. A sharp, definitive gesture. No anesthetic. "Don't be stupid. I need to suture this in layers. It's going to take how long?" 45 minutes. Maybe an hour. "Then you have an hour." He settled back slightly, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. "Begin." She wanted to argue, should have argued, but something in his stillness, in the coiled tension of his body, told her that argument was pointless. This man would sit through an hour of pain before he'd accept anything that might dull his control. "Your funeral," she muttered, threading the first suture. "Not tonight." Lena made the first stitch, pulling the deep tissue together with practiced precision. The man's jaw tightened, muscles cording in his neck, but he didn't move. Didn't speak. Just breathed steadily through his nose, each breath controlled and measured. She'd seen combat veterans with less pain tolerance. "You military?" she asked, trying to distract him, and herself, from the grotesque intimacy of the work. "No." "You hold pain like someone with training." "I have training." His eyes cut to her face briefly. "Different kind." Lena moved to the next stitch, then the next, building a ladder of sutures through the deepest layer of the wound. Her back ached from leaning over him, and sweat beaded at her temples despite the room's chill. Outside the triage bay, she could hear the normal chaos of the ER, someone crying, a doctor shouting orders, a monitor alarm shrieking, but in here there was only silence and the quiet rasp of thread through flesh. "Why no hospital records?" she asked softly. "What are you hiding from?" "Who says I'm hiding?" "Everyone who walks in here like this is hiding from something. Police, immigration, abusive partners." She paused, meeting his eyes. "Enemies." His smile returned, colder this time. "Enemies. Yes, that's the right word." "The kind of enemies who do this?" She gestured to the wound. "The kind who tried. And failed." "Obviously." Lena started the second layer of sutures, pulling the muscle wall together. The man's breathing had changed, coming faster now, but still controlled, still refusing to show weakness. "You should be in surgery," she said. "This wound is being handled by you. I'm a nurse, not a surgeon. You have steady hands. That's enough." She wanted to ask more, wanted to demand answers about who he was, what he did, why 4 armed men stood guard while she stitched him back together. But the questions died in her throat because part of her already knew. The expensive suit, the guards, the cash-only payment she could see one of them counting out on the counter. The absolute authority in his voice. This was a man who lived outside the law, and she was helping him. "Almost done with the deep layer," she said instead. "Then I need to close the fascia and skin." "How much longer?" 20 minutes. He nodded once, his face going gray at the edges. The pain was getting to him, she realized, finally breaking through that iron control. "You want to stop? Take a break?" "No." The word came out harsh. "Finish it." So she did. Stitch after stitch, layer after layer, rebuilding the architecture of his body with thread and determination. Her fingers cramped around the needle driver, and her lower back screamed from holding position. But she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Because somewhere in the last 30 minutes, this had stopped being just a medical procedure. It had become a test. His test of her skill, her nerve. Her test of whether she could still do this work, still save someone, even when protocol said she should refuse. The final layer went faster, interrupted sutures along the skin, pulling the edges together in a clean line that would scar. Nothing could prevent that with a wound this size, but would heal properly if he followed aftercare instructions. Which he wouldn't, she knew instinctively. Done, Lena said, stepping back to examine her work. You need antibiotics, wound care instructions, follow up in 5 days to check for infection. No follow-up. Then you'll probably get an infection and die. Your choice. He sat up slowly, testing the pull of the stitches, his face revealing nothing. You did good work. I do good work every night, usually for people who actually listen to medical advice. I'm not most people. No, Lena agreed quietly. You're definitely not. One of the guards stepped forward, holding out a manila envelope. The man, her patient, though she still didn't know his name, took it and extended it toward her. Payment. We take insurance or credit cards. This is better. Lena didn't move to take it. I don't accept cash payments. It needs to go through the hospital. The hospital will charge you for supplies, for time, for documentation. His voice lowered, becoming almost gentle. This is for you, for your discretion. I don't need... Everyone needs something. He stood, moving with surprising ease despite the fresh sutures. You work overnight shifts at a hospital that barely pays minimum wage. You live in a 4th floor walk-up in Astoria with broken heating. Your car died 6 months ago and you take the subway in the dark. He took a step closer, and Lena's breath caught. You need this money. Take it. The envelope felt heavy in her hands when she finally accepted it. Too heavy. She didn't need to open it to know there was more inside than any reasonable payment for medical services. How do you know where I live? I make it my business to know things. He shrugged into his jacket with practiced ease, hiding the blood-stained shirt. Especially about people who could hurt me. I'm a nurse. I save people. I don't hurt them. Everyone hurts everyone eventually. He buttoned his jacket, transforming from a wounded patient into something else entirely, something powerful and dangerous that made the air in the room feel thinner. But tonight you saved me. I don't forget that. Great. Send a thank you card. His laugh surprised her, genuine amusement lighting those winter eyes. You have nerve. I like that. And you have a knife wound that's going to get infected if you don't take care of it. I don't like that. He moved toward the door, his guards falling into formation around him like a well-trained unit. But at the threshold he paused, looking back at her. What's your name? He asked. Your full name. Why? Because I gave you money and didn't get a receipt. Consider it a transaction detail. Lena hesitated, every instinct warning her that giving this man her name was a mistake. But he already knew where she lived, already knew her schedule. What difference would a name make? Lena Carter. Lena. He repeated it slowly, as if tasting the syllables. Thank you, Lena Carter, for your steady hands. Then he was gone, disappearing through the doors with his silent guards, leaving nothing behind but blood-stained gauze and an envelope full of money that Lena knew she should refuse. Should, but wouldn't, because he'd been right about everything. The 4th floor walk-up with heating that barely worked. The dead car. The overnight shifts at a hospital that treated nurses like disposable equipment. The student loans from a nursing degree she'd finished while working 2 jobs. The credit card debt from her mother's final hospital stay, 3 years dead and still costing Lena everything. She opened the envelope. $10,000. All hundreds. All real. Holy shit, she whispered. Lena? Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Please tell me you didn't just treat who I think you treated. I don't know who I treated. No name, remember? That was Adrian Volkov. Marcus's voice dropped to barely a whisper. That was the Volkov. Do you have any idea? No, Lena cut him off. And I don't want to know. I stitched a wound, that's it. Lena, he runs half the organized crime on the East Coast. Russian bratva, smuggling operations, money laundering. The guy is basically untouchable. And you just saved his life. That's what I do, Marcus. I save lives. I don't ask for political affiliations or background checks first. But even as she said it, even as she shoved the envelope into her locker and tried to return to normal work, Lena knew something had changed. You didn't touch a man like Adrian Volkov, didn't see him vulnerable, didn't hold his blood on your hands, didn't take his money, and just walk away unchanged. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. A cardiac arrest at 4 a.m., a domestic violence victim at 5, a diabetic emergency at 6. By the time her replacement arrived at 7, Lena felt hollowed out, running on fumes and adrenaline. She changed out of her scrubs in the staff locker room, exhaustion making her movements slow. The envelope waited in her locker, and she stared at it for a long moment before shoving it into her bag. Tomorrow she'd think about what to do with it. Tonight, this morning, she just needed to get home. The subway ride to Astoria was crowded with early commuters, everyone packed together in mutual misery. Lena found a spot near the doors and closed her eyes, letting the train's rhythm lull her into something like rest. She almost missed her stop. The walk from the station to her building took 15 minutes, through streets just beginning to wake up. The bodega on the corner was opening, metal gates rolling up with a shriek. The old woman who fed the stray cats was already out, scattering food in the alley. Normal. Everything normal, except for the black SUV parked across the street from her building. Lena slowed, her heart rate picking up. Probably nothing. Lots of people owned black SUVs. It didn't mean... The back door opened. A man stepped out. Not one of the guards from the hospital, but cut from the same cloth. Big, professional, dangerous. He didn't approach her, just stood beside the vehicle, waiting. Lena's hand tightened on her bag strap. She could run, could scream, could... Ms. Carter. The man's voice carried across the street, accented like Volkov's, but rougher. Mr. Volkov requests your assistance. I'm off duty. This is not a hospital matter. Then tell Mr. Volkov to make an appointment like everyone else. The man didn't smile. It's not a request. Lena's breath came faster. I'm going inside. Don't follow me. She turned toward her building, keys already in hand, but the man called out again. The wound is infected. He has fever. He will not go to hospital. A pause. He's dying, Ms. Carter, and he asks for you. She stopped, her hand on the building's door. Don't turn around, her mind screamed. Go inside, lock the door, call the police. You don't owe him anything. But she turned anyway. How high is the fever? 104, rising. Shit. Medical training overrode self-preservation. 104 and rising meant sepsis was a real possibility, meant organ failure, shock, death, meant that even a man as strong as Adrian Volkov could be dead by nightfall. Does he have chills, confusion? Rapid heartbeat? All of it. Lena closed her eyes. This was insane. Going with these men, entering Volkov's world more deeply, becoming entangled in whatever criminal enterprise he ran, it was insane. But a patient was dying, and she'd sworn an oath. Give me 5 minutes, she said. I need to get supplies. The man nodded once, expression unchanging. Lena ran up the 4 flights to her apartment, her mind already cataloging what she'd need. IV antibiotics, fluids, wound care supplies. She kept a medical kit for emergencies, old habit from her training, and she dumped its contents onto her bed, sorting quickly. Ceftriaxone for broad-spectrum coverage, saline bags for hydration, bandages, antiseptic, thermometer. Not enough. Not nearly enough for true sepsis, but better than nothing. She changed quickly, throwing on jeans and a sweater, then grabbed the kit and headed back downstairs. The SUV still waited, engine running. The man opened the back door as she approached. This doesn't mean I work for you, Lena said as she climbed inside. I'm treating a patient, that's all. Of course, Ms. Carter. The door closed and the SUV pulled away from the curb, heading deeper into the city. Lena had made her second choice. She just didn't know yet how much it would cost her. The SUV's interior smelled of leather and something else, gun oil maybe, or the particular scent of men who lived with violence. Lena sat rigid in the back seat, her medical kit clutched on her lap like a shield, watching the city blur past tinted windows. They drove for 20 minutes, leaving behind the familiar streets of Astoria for neighborhoods she recognized only from news reports about gentrification and gang violence. The buildings grew larger, more ornate, old money mixed with new power. Finally, the SUV turned through iron gates that opened automatically, gliding up a circular driveway to a mansion that looked transplanted from a European estate. "This way, Ms. Carter." The guard who'd collected her opened her door, gesturing toward the entrance. Lena stepped out, craning her neck to take in the building. Stone facade, 3 stories, windows that probably cost more than her annual salary. Floodlights illuminated manicured gardens even in the early morning darkness. And everywhere, on the roof, at the corners, near the gates, she spotted the silhouettes of armed men. Not a home, a fortress. "How long has he had the fever?" she asked as they climbed marble steps to the front door. "Since last night. Got worse after midnight. Less than 12 hours post-injury. Fast for an infection to take hold that aggressively, but not impossible with a contaminated blade and no prophylactic antibiotics." Lena's mind cycled through possibilities: simple wound infection, developing cellulitis, early sepsis, necrotizing fasciitis if she was unlucky. The interior of the mansion matched the exterior's opulence: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that looked original, and probably cost more than her student loans. But Lena barely noticed the wealth, too focused on the guard leading her up a sweeping staircase to the second floor. They stopped at a door flanked by 2 more armed men. One of them knocked twice, then pushed it open. "The nurse is here." The bedroom beyond was larger than Lena's entire apartment. A massive bed dominated the space, and in it, barely visible under dark silk sheets, lay Adrian Volkov. He looked worse than any patient she'd seen in the ER tonight. His skin had gone gray-pale, sweat soaking through the white t-shirt he wore. His eyes were closed, but his breathing came fast and shallow, the kind of respiratory rate that signaled a body in distress. "Everyone out," Lena said, moving to the bedside. "I need space to work." The guards didn't move. She turned to face them, summoning every ounce of authority she'd learned in 6 years of emergency nursing. "Out. Now. Unless you want to explain to whoever's in charge why you let him die because you were too stubborn to give me room to work." One of the guards, older than the others, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, jerked his head toward the door. "You heard her? Wait outside." They filed out, leaving Lena alone with her patient. She set down her kit and immediately went to work, checking his pulse first. Fast, thready, weak. Not good. His skin felt like fire under her fingers. "Mr. Volkov." She gently shook his shoulder. "Adrian, can you hear me?" His eyes opened, but they were unfocused, glassy with fever. "Lena?" "Yes. I'm here. I need to check your wound." She pulled back the sheets and lifted his shirt, her stomach dropping at what she found. The sutured wound had turned angry red, the skin around it swollen and hot to touch. Clear fluid wept from between several stitches, and when she pressed gently on the surrounding tissue, Volkov hissed in pain. Infected. Definitely infected. But the bigger question was whether the infection had spread beyond the local site. "I need to take your temperature," she said, reaching for the thermometer. "And I need you to stay awake. Can you do that?" "Always. Awake." His words slurred slightly. "Can't afford to sleep." The thermometer beeped. 104.3. High enough to cause confusion, damage organs if it went higher. Lena grabbed her stethoscope, listening to his heart, racing at 130 beats per minute, then his lungs. Clear, thank God. No signs of pneumonia or fluid buildup yet. "When did you last urinate?" she asked. "Don't remember." "Try to remember. It's important." Volkov's brow furrowed with effort. "This morning? Maybe. Everything's blurred. Decreased urine output, altered mental status, fever, tachycardia. The signs were lining up for systemic infection, possibly early septic shock. She needed to start treatment immediately. "I'm going to start an IV," she told him, pulling supplies from her kit. "You need fluids and antibiotics. This is going to hurt, but I need you to hold still." Always hurts. His eyes focused on her briefly, recognition flickering through the fever haze. You came. You needed help. I'm a nurse. It's what I do. You could have refused. I probably should have. Lena found a vein in his left arm, prepping the site with alcohol. But apparently I make bad decisions when people are dying. She slid the IV catheter in smoothly, securing it with tape, then hung the first saline bag from the ornate bedpost. Not ideal, but it would work. The fluid started dripping, and she calculated the rate in her head, wide open for the first liter, then reassess. This next part is going to hurt worse, she warned, drawing up the ceftriaxone. IV antibiotics burn going in. Do it. Lena pushed the medication slowly, watching his face tighten with pain. To his credit, he didn't make a sound, just breathed through gritted teeth until she finished. Now I need to clean the wound. That means removing some of the stitches to drain the infection. Whatever you need to do. She gathered fresh gauze, antiseptic, and scissors, then carefully cut away the stitches showing the most inflammation. As soon as she opened the wound, purulent fluid drained out, thick, yellowish, foul-smelling. Lena's nose wrinkled, but she worked methodically, irrigating the wound with saline, packing it with antibiotic-impregnated gauze. Volkov's breathing had gone ragged, his hands fisting in the sheets. The pain had to be excruciating, but he stayed still, let her work, didn't pull away. Talk to me, she said, trying to distract him. Tell me something. Anything. Like what? How you ended up with a knife wound in the first place. Business? Disagreement? Must have been some disagreement. The kind that ends with one person standing. His eyes found hers again, clearer now despite the fever. I'm still standing. Barely. You're lucky you didn't die from this infection. Lucky, he repeated, that sardonic edge returning to his voice even through the pain. Always. So lucky. Lena finished packing the wound and secured a fresh bandage over it. The antibiotics need time to work. Your fever should start coming down in the next few hours if we caught it early enough. But you need constant monitoring, vitals every hour, temperature checks, IV fluids until you're stable. You'll stay? The question caught her off guard. I have another shift tonight. I need to sleep, shower, stay. His hand caught hers, burning hot but surprisingly strong. Please. Lena looked down at their joined hands, at this man who commanded criminal empires and faced knife wounds without anesthetic, now asking, not ordering, her to stay. There was something in his eyes that made her chest tight, something vulnerable beneath all that power and control. I'll stay until your fever breaks, she heard herself say. Then I'm leaving. Fair enough? She pulled up a chair beside the bed, keeping one hand on his wrist to monitor his pulse. The sun had started rising outside the massive windows, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the distance, she could see the Manhattan skyline, the city waking up to another day of ordinary lives and ordinary problems. Nothing about this was ordinary. Why me? She asked quietly. You have money, resources. You could have real doctors, private medical teams. Why drag a random ER nurse into this? Volkov's eyes had drifted closed again, but he answered without opening them. You didn't hesitate. In the hospital, you saw me, saw my men, knew what I was, and you still helped. No fear, no judgment, just did your job. That's what nurses do. No, that's what you do. He shifted slightly, grimacing. Most people see me. They see monster, killer, thing to be feared. You saw patient, someone bleeding who needed help. Haven't been just a person in very long time. Lena felt something crack inside her chest. You're still a person, even if you've done terrible things. Especially because I've done terrible things. Yeet. They fell into silence after that, Lena watching the sunrise while monitoring Volkov's vitals. His pulse stayed elevated but didn't worsen. His breathing remained fast but regular. The fever held steady at 104, refusing to budge despite the IV fluids and medication. Around 9 a.m., the door opened and the scarred guard entered, carrying a tray of food. "Thought you might be hungry, miss." Lena's stomach growled in response. She hadn't eaten since her dinner break at 1 a.m., nearly 8 hours ago. The tray held coffee, real coffee, not the burnt sludge from the hospital, fresh fruit, and what looked like a gourmet omelet. "Thank you," she said, surprised by the gesture. "Boss's orders. Anyone who helps him gets treated well." The guard's expression softened slightly. "He's going to be okay." "The boss?" "I think so. If the antibiotics work and the fever comes down." The guard nodded, something like relief crossing his scarred face. "Good. He's a good man. Good boss. Takes care of us, not like some of the others." Lena wanted to ask what he meant by others, but the guard had already left, closing the door quietly behind him. She ate mechanically, forcing food down despite the surreal situation. A criminal's fortress, watching over a man who probably had blood on his hands, being served breakfast by armed guards who called him boss with genuine affection. What was she doing here? But she stayed. Checked Volkov's temperature at 10, still 104. At 11, 103.8. At noon, 103.5. The fever was finally breaking, the antibiotics gaining ground against the infection. He woke around 1 p.m., eyes clearer than they'd been in hours. "You're still here." "I said I'd stay until your fever broke. It's breaking." "What is it now?" 103.5, still too high, but better than before. Volkov tried to sit up, but Lena pushed him back down with one hand on his chest. "Don't even think about it. You need rest, fluids, and at least another 6 hours of antibiotics before you start moving around. I have work. You have sepsis, or you did. Move too fast and it'll come back worse." She fixed him with her best nurse stare, the one that made even hardened trauma patients listen. "I didn't drag myself across the city and spend my sleep time keeping you alive so you could kill yourself being stubborn." He stared at her for a long moment, then laughed. A real laugh this time, rough but genuine. "You're very bossy for someone half my size." "I'm a nurse, but bossy is in the job description." "Is beautiful also in the job description?" The words hung in the air between them. Lena felt heat rise in her cheeks, from exhaustion, she told herself. Just exhaustion. "That's the fever talking." Fever's going down, mind's clearing up. His gaze tracked over her face with unsettling intensity. "You have shadows under your eyes. When did you last sleep?" "Yesterday, before my shift." "That was over 24 hours ago. I'm used to it." "You shouldn't have to be." Something shifted in his expression, hardening. "Why does someone with your skills work overnight shifts at a public hospital? You could make 3 times the salary in private care." Lena's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." "You made my health your business. Seems fair." "I saved your life twice now. That doesn't mean you get to interrogate me about my choices." "Not interrogating, observing." He gestured weakly to the chair she'd been sitting in. "You've been here for hours, monitoring me, making sure I didn't die. You could have left after starting the IV, but you stayed. Why?" "Because that's what good medical care requires." "No, because you can't help yourself. You see someone suffering and you have to fix it, even when it's dangerous, even when it's stupid, even when the person you're saving is someone like me." Lena stood abruptly, checking the IV bag to avoid his too perceptive gaze. "The antibiotics need to run for another 3 hours. I'll have someone else monitor you. I need to go home." "Lena." The way he said her name made her pause. "I didn't mean to offend you." "You didn't." "Then why are you running?" "I'm not running. I'm leaving. There's a difference." She started gathering her supplies, shoving them back into her medical kit with more force than necessary. Volkov watched her, silent now, and somehow that was worse than his questions. "You'll need to change the bandage every 4 hours," she said, falling back on clinical instructions. "Watch for increased redness, heat, or drainage. Keep taking the antibiotics. I'm leaving you a week's supply. If the fever comes back or the wound starts smelling worse, you need real medical attention." "Will you come back? If I need you?" Lena closed her kit with a sharp snap. Don't need me. Go to a hospital like a normal person. I'm not normal. No, you're really not. She headed for the door, but his voice stopped her one more time. Thank you. For coming. For staying. For giving a damn whether I lived or died. Lena looked back at him, this dangerous man in his fortress, still pale and weak from infection, but already trying to reclaim his power. Don't make me regret it. Then she left, before he could say anything else that made her want to stay. The same guard who'd brought her breakfast escorted her downstairs, but instead of leading her to the front door, he guided her to a different SUV, this one already running. We'll take you home, miss. I can take the subway. Boss's orders. Anyone who helps him gets home safe. Lena was too tired to argue. She climbed into the SUV and they drove back through the city in silence. When they pulled up to her building in Astoria, the guard handed her an envelope. From the boss. More money? Tell him I don't need... Not money. Information. He said you'd understand. Lena took the envelope, frowning. The guard waited until she was safely inside her building before driving away. In her apartment, she finally opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with a phone number and a handwritten note in angular script. If you're ever in trouble, call this number, day or night. You saved my life twice. I owe you a debt. I always pay my debts. A V. Lena stared at the note for a long time. Then she folded it carefully and tucked it into her wallet, telling herself she'd never use it, knowing she was lying. She slept through the afternoon and into the evening, waking at 10 p.m. with barely enough time to shower and grab food before her midnight shift. The hospital felt surreal after the strangeness of Volkov's mansion, but she fell into the familiar rhythm quickly: triage, treatment, endless documentation. Around 3 a.m., Marcus cornered her by the supply closet. So, want to tell me what happened yesterday? Nothing happened. I went home and slept. Lena, you disappeared with Volkov's people. I covered for you with the supervisor, told her you had a family emergency, but you can't just... I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have put you in that position. Marcus studied her face, concerned. Are you in trouble? Because if that man is threatening you or forcing you to... No, nothing like that. He was sick. I treated him, that's all. That's all. Lena, do you have any idea who he is, what he does? I know he's a person who was dying from an infection. That's all I needed to know. That's not all you need to know. Marcus's voice rose, then dropped to an urgent whisper. He runs drugs, weapons, people across half the East Coast. The FBI has been trying to build a case against him for years. Anyone associated with him becomes a target, either for the feds or for his enemies. You can't get involved with someone like that. I'm not involved. I provided medical care. Twice. That's it. Is it? Because you look like someone who's not sure anymore. Lena opened her mouth to argue, but the words died in her throat. Because Marcus was right. She wasn't sure. Wasn't sure why she'd gone to help Volkov the second time. Wasn't sure why she'd stayed for hours monitoring his vitals when she could have left. Wasn't sure why that note in her wallet felt like both a promise and a threat. I'm handling it, she said finally. Lena, I'm handling it, Marcus. Drop it. He sighed, but nodded, backing off. They finished the shift in tense silence, and Lena went home that morning wondering if anything would ever feel normal again. For 3 days, nothing happened. She worked her shifts, came home exhausted, slept through the days. The envelope of money from her first encounter with Volkov sat in her dresser drawer, untouched. The note with his phone number stayed in her wallet. She told herself to throw both away, to forget the whole thing, to go back to her ordinary life of debt and exhaustion and saving people who actually appreciated it. She told herself a lot of things. On the 4th day, she came home at 8 a.m. to find the black SUV waiting again. Lena's blood ran cold. She approached slowly, ready to run if needed, but the same scarred guard stepped out, hands visible and empty. Ms. Carter, we need your help. Tell Mr. Volkov to see a real doctor. It's not for the boss, it's for Mikhail, one of our men, gunshot wound to the shoulder. We can't take him to a hospital without police involvement. Then that's your problem, not mine. The guard's expression turned desperate. Please, he's 23 years old. Good kid. Took a bullet meant for someone else. He's going to die without help, and we can't—" His voice cracked. "Please. The boss said you were the only one he trusts." Lena closed her eyes, fighting against every instinct that screamed at her to walk away. But an image flashed through her mind, a 23-year-old bleeding out because she'd been too scared to help, too worried about her own safety to save a life. "Get me to him. Fast." The drive took 15 minutes, racing through early morning traffic to a warehouse in Red Hook. Inside, on a table that looked like it had been hastily cleared of cargo, a young man lay bleeding. His face was white as paper, his shirt soaked red, and two other guards were trying to stop the bleeding with what looked like shop rags. Lena's training kicked in instantly. "Move! Everyone move! Now!" She assessed quickly. Through and through gunshot wound to the left shoulder, probably missed major vessels, or he'd be dead already. But blood loss was severe and the entry wound needed immediate attention. "I need supplies. IV kit, saline, antibiotics, bandages." "In the corner. We brought what we could." Lena grabbed the medical supplies, mentally cataloging what she had to work with. Not enough for surgery, but enough to stabilize him, stop the bleeding, prevent infection. She worked for 90 minutes, ignoring the armed men watching, ignoring the absurdity of performing emergency medicine in a warehouse, focusing only on keeping Mikhail alive. By the time she finished, he had an IV running. The wounds were packed and bandaged, and his color had improved from deathly white to merely pale. "He needs real medical care," she told the guards. "This is temporary. He needs surgery to make sure there's no permanent damage." "We'll take care of it. Thank you, miss." "Really?" Lena nodded, exhausted, and turned to find Adrian Volkov standing in the warehouse doorway. He looked fully recovered, the fever and weakness gone, replaced by his usual controlled power. But something in his eyes had changed when he looked at her. "You came again. Someone needed help." "You keep saying that, like it's simple." "It is simple. People are dying. I can help. Therefore I help." Volkov crossed to her slowly, his gaze never leaving her face. "Most people aren't like you. Most people run from danger, from complications, from men like me. Maybe I'm not most people." "No, you're definitely not." He reached out, and for a moment Lena thought he might touch her face, but he simply handed her another envelope. "Payment. For Mikhail. And for the other day." "I don't want your money." "Then donate it. Burn it. Use it to pay off those student loans that keep you working yourself to death." His voice softened. "I know you think you don't want anything from me, but you've saved 2 lives now, people under my protection. That creates a debt." "I don't want your debt either." "Too bad. You have it anyway." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his winter-gray eyes. "You can't keep showing up in my world, saving the people I care about, and expect nothing to change." "What's going to change?" "Everything." His hand finally did touch her face, just fingertips against her cheek, gentle despite the calluses. "You've made yourself important to me, Lena Carter. And anything important to me I protect, whether you want protection or not." Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the warehouse with blood on her hands and his words echoing in her ears. The guards drove her home again. This envelope held $15,000. Lena stood in her tiny apartment, looking at the money spread across her bed, and realized with creeping horror that Marcus had been right. She was involved now. Deeply, dangerously involved, and she had no idea how to get free. The money sat in her dresser drawer for 2 days before Lena finally did something with it. Not burning it, not donating it, but something practical and damning. She paid off 3 months of back rent, cleared her overdue electric bill, and bought groceries that weren't ramen or day-old bread from the discount rack. Each purchase felt like a small surrender. She told herself it was pragmatic. The money existed whether she used it or not. Volkov had given it freely, without demands or conditions. Taking it didn't mean she belonged to him, didn't mean she was complicit in whatever darkness funded his empire. She told herself a lot of lies those 2 days. On the 3rd day, she arrived at the hospital for her shift to find Marcus waiting by her locker, his face grim. "We need to talk." "I'm about to clock in." "This can't wait." He pulled her into the empty break room, checking to make sure they were alone. 2 FBI agents came by yesterday asking about you. Lena's stomach dropped. What? They wanted to know about your relationship with Adrian Volkov, whether he'd threatened you, whether you were providing medical services in exchange for money or protection. Marcus's voice lowered. Lena, they know you treated him. They know you've been to his property. They're building a case and they think you might be leverage. I'm not anything to him. I treated a patient, that's it. That's not what it looks like from the outside. And if the FBI thinks you're connected, that makes you a target, either for them to flip you or for Volkov's enemies to use against him. Lena sat down heavily in one of the plastic chairs. What did you tell them? Nothing. Said I didn't know anything about your personal life, which is technically true. But Lena, they're going to come back. They're going to pressure you. And if you don't cooperate, I can't cooperate. I don't know anything about his business. I sutured a wound and treated an infection. That's all I know. Marcus studied her carefully. Is it? Because you look like someone carrying more weight than just medical knowledge. She did. Lena could feel it pressing down on her shoulders, the memory of Volkov's mansion, his fever-bright eyes, the way he'd said anything important to me, I protect, the note in her wallet that promised safety she didn't ask for and couldn't refuse. I'm not involved in anything illegal, she said finally. Maybe not, but you're involved with someone illegal. That's enough. The shift that night felt surreal, like she was watching herself from outside her body. Every patient who came through the doors, she wondered if they were connected somehow, to Volkov, to his enemies, to the FBI watching her. Paranoia wrapped around her like a second skin. At 4 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't go home tonight. Not safe. Car will pick you up at 7. Trust me. AV. Lena stared at the message, ice sliding down her spine. How did he have her number? More importantly, what did he mean by not safe? She called the number he'd given her, the one from the note. He answered on the first ring. Lena, what's going on? Why isn't my apartment safe? Because Viktor Kozlov's people have been watching it since yesterday, and Viktor doesn't send watchers unless he plans to make a move. Who the hell is Viktor Kozlov? A pause, heavy with things unsaid. My competition and my enemy. He knows you've been helping me. He knows you matter. That makes you a target. I don't matter to you. I'm a nurse who... You saved my life. Twice. In my world, that creates a bond. Loyalty. Debt. Volkov's voice hardened. Viktor understands that. He'll use you to get to me if he can. Kidnapping, torture, ransom. He's done it before. Lena's hand tightened on the phone. This is insane. I'm not part of your world. I don't want to be part of your world. Want doesn't matter anymore. You crossed into it the moment you stitched that wound. Now I need you to trust me long enough to keep you alive. Trust you? I don't even know you. You know I pay my debts. You know I protect what's mine. And whether you like it or not, you're under my protection now. His tone softened slightly. The car will be there at 7. Please be in it. He hung up before she could argue. Lena stood in the empty medication room, her reflection ghostly in the dark window, and tried to figure out when exactly her life had spun so completely out of control. A month ago, her biggest problems had been money and exhaustion. Now she was being hunted by Russian mobsters because she'd done her job. At 6:45 a.m., she clocked out and found Marcus waiting by the staff entrance. Going somewhere? Home, maybe. I don't know. The FBI agents left their card. Said you should call them. Said they could offer protection if you need it. Lena looked at the card he held out. FBI, Organized Crime Division, Special Agent Sarah Chen. A lifeline, maybe. Or just a different kind of trap. Did they say anything else? That Adrian Volkov is dangerous. That people who get close to him end up dead or compromised. That you should be careful. Marcus met her eyes. I think they're right, Lena. Whatever's happening, you need to get out before it's too late. What if it's already too late? She took the card anyway, tucking it into her bag next to the envelope of money she hadn't spent yet. Then she walked out of the hospital into the gray dawn light. The black SUV waited exactly where Volkov said it would be. Lena stood on the sidewalk, caught between two impossible choices, get in the car and commit herself further to Volkov's world, or go home and hope the FBI or Kozlov's men got to her first. The back door opened. The scarred guard, she'd learned his name was Dmitri, gestured to the empty seat. "Please, miss, it's not safe out here." Lena got in. They drove to Volkov's mansion in silence, but this time when they arrived, the fortress was on high alert. Armed men everywhere, multiple checkpoints at the gate, and a tension in the air that made her skin prickle. Volkov met her at the door personally. He dressed for war. Black tactical pants, dark shirt, shoulder holster visible. But his eyes softened when he saw her. "You came. You didn't give me much choice." "There's always a choice." He gestured for her to follow him inside. "Come. We need to talk." He led her to a study lined with books in what looked like Russian and English, dominated by a massive desk and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. Dawn light streamed through, illuminating the hard planes of his face. "How much danger am I actually in?" Lena asked, too tired for pretense. "Substantial. Viktor Kozlov runs the rival family in Brighton Beach. We've been at war for territory for 3 years. He lost his brother in a firefight 6 months ago. My people were responsible. He wants revenge, and he's smart enough to know direct assault won't work." Volkov poured 2 glasses of something amber from a crystal decanter. "So he looks for weaknesses, leverage, people I care about." "I'm not someone you care about. I barely know you." "You think that matters?" He handed her one of the glasses. "In this life, perception is reality. You've been seen with my people. You've been to my home. You've saved lives I value. That's enough for Victor to make assumptions." Lena took the glass but didn't drink. "The FBI came to my hospital. They think I'm involved in your business." Something dangerous flickered across Volkov's face. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing, because there's nothing to tell. But they're building a case. They want to use me to get to you." "Of course they do." He moved to the window, looking out over his fortified grounds. "The FBI has been trying to touch me for years. They have nothing concrete, so they look for weak points, people who might talk." "I wouldn't—" "I know." He turned back to her, and the certainty in his voice made her breath catch. "You're loyal. It's in your nature. You wouldn't betray someone who trusted you, even if that someone is a monster." "You're not a monster." "Yes, I am. I've killed men, Lena. Ordered deaths. Built an empire on violence and fear. The fact that you can't see that just proves how good you are. Too good for someone like me." Lena set down the glass, anger suddenly burning through her exhaustion. "Don't do that. Don't make yourself into some tragic villain so you can push me away while simultaneously keeping me here against my will. You're not here against your will. You chose to get in that car. Because you said I'd be killed if I didn't." "Yes, because that's the truth." Volkov crossed back to her, close enough that she could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "I'm trying to keep you alive, even though the smartest thing would be to cut all ties and let you go. But I can't. Because the thought of Victor's men getting their hands on you makes me want to burn his entire organization to the ground." The raw honesty in his voice stole her breath. "Why? Why do you care what happens to me?" "I don't know." His hand came up to her face, fingers gentle against her cheek. "Maybe because you looked at me and saw a person instead of a weapon. Maybe because you have the courage to walk into danger to save lives. Maybe because, when I was dying from fever, you stayed, even though you didn't have to." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "Or maybe because you're the first thing in 10 years that's made me feel human, instead of just dangerous." Lena should have pulled away, should have reminded him that she was just a nurse, that he was just a patient, that this connection was impossible and wrong and built on violence. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. Because something in his eyes called to something in her. The same thing that made her work overnight shifts treating trauma. The same thing that made her walk toward danger instead of away. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now I handle Victor, permanently." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to make him understand that touching you, threatening you, even thinking about you is a death sentence." Volkov's voice went cold, the warmth draining out of him. "I'm going to show him what happens when someone threatens what's mine." "I'm not yours." "Yes, you are. You just haven't admitted it yet. Before she could respond, Dmitri burst into the room without knocking, his face urgent. Boss, we found it. The tracking device, just like you suspected. Volkov's expression went deadly. Where? In the nurse's medical bag. Small, professional grade. It's been transmitting her location for at least a week. The bottom dropped out of Lena's world. What? Dmitri held out her medical kit, the one she'd brought to treat Volkov's infection, the one she'd used to save Mikhail. Hidden inside a seam in the lining was a small black disc no bigger than a quarter. Someone planted this on you, Volkov said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Someone who wanted to know every time you came to me, every time you helped my people. Lena's mind raced. The FBI, they could have, not their style. They'd use legal surveillance, not illegal tracking. Volkov took the device from Dmitri, examining it. This is Victor's work, which means he's known about you longer than I thought, which means he's been planning this for a while. Planning what? As if in answer, an explosion rocked the mansion. The windows rattled, alarms shrieked, and somewhere outside men started shouting. Volkov's hand clamped around Lena's wrist. Stay with me. Don't leave my side. What's happening? Victor just made his move. More explosions followed, closer now. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions, the sharp crack of rifles mixing with the deeper boom of heavier weapons. Volkov pulled Lena away from the windows as glass shattered, then pushed her behind his desk. Stay down! Dmitri and 3 other guards rushed in, weapons drawn, forming a protective barrier around Volkov, but he waved them toward the windows. Defensive positions. They want chaos. We give them order. No one gets inside. No one touches her. The guards moved with military precision, returning fire through the broken windows. Lena crouched behind the desk, her heart hammering, trying to process what was happening. This was a war, an actual war, and it was happening because of her. Volkov crouched beside her, phone in hand, barking orders in rapid Russian. Then he switched to English, his eyes meeting hers. There are tunnels under the house. Dmitri is going to take you through them to a safe house in Queens. You'll stay there until this is over. What about you? I'm ending this, tonight. You can't just... Lena. He grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm. Victor brought war to my home, used you as bait to draw me out. That requires a response. A final one. You mean you're going to kill him? Yes, him and everyone who helped plan this. I'm going to make an example so brutal that no one ever threatens what's mine again. Another explosion. Closer. The desk shook. Somewhere in the house, something collapsed with a deafening crash. We need to move, Dmitri called out. They're breaching the east wing. Volkov pulled Lena to her feet, his hands framing her face. Trust Dmitri. He'll keep you safe. And when this is over, I'll come for you. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I always keep my promises. He kissed her forehead, quick and fierce. Always. Then he shoved her toward Dmitri, who grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a bookshelf that swung open to reveal a dark passage. Lena looked back once and saw Volkov picking up a rifle, his face transformed into something cold and lethal, a man built for violence. Dmitri pulled her into the tunnel, and the bookshelf swung shut behind them, muffling the sounds of war. They ran through darkness, Dmitri's flashlight the only illumination, her medical bag banging against her hip with each step. The tracking device. Victor had used her, tracked her, turned her into bait without her knowledge. And now men were dying because she'd been too naive to see it coming. How many people are attacking? She gasped as they ran. 50, maybe more. Victor mobilized half his organization for this. And Volkov's men? We have numbers too, but Victor has surprise. Dmitri's jaw tightened. Boss will handle it. He always does. They emerged from the tunnel into a parking garage, where another SUV waited with armed guards. Dmitri pushed her into the back seat, climbing in beside her. Queen's safe house. Fast. The driver didn't need to be told twice. They peeled out, racing through streets that were starting to fill with early morning traffic. Normal people going to normal jobs, completely unaware that a war was happening in the wealthy enclave they'd just left. Lena's phone buzzed, a text from the unknown number. Stay safe. This ends tonight. AV. She stared at the message, then at Dmitri. What does he mean by ends tonight? Dmitri's expression was grim. Boss has been patient with Victor, trading territory, trying to avoid all-out war. But Victor crossed a line when he put that tracker on you, when he used you to plan an attack. He met her eyes. The boss protects what's his, always, no matter the cost. How many people are going to die tonight? As many as it takes. The safe house turned out to be a brownstone in a quiet Queens neighborhood, completely ordinary except for the armed guards stationed inside. Dmitri led her to a second-floor bedroom, checking the windows and locks. You'll be safe here. Don't leave. Don't call anyone. The boss will come get you when it's over. And if he doesn't come? Dmitri's face softened slightly. He'll come? I've known him 15 years, never seen him care about anyone the way he cares about you. He'll come. Then he left, and Lena was alone. She sat on the bed, still wearing her scrubs from the hospital shift that felt like a lifetime ago, and tried to make sense of everything. A month ago, she'd been invisible. A nurse working overnight shifts, drowning in debt, going through the motions of a life half-lived. Now she was at the center of a gang war, protected by a man who killed people, hunted by his enemies, tracked by the FBI. And somewhere in the chaos, she'd started to care about whether Adrian Volkov lived or died. When had that happened? When had he stopped being just a patient and become someone whose safety mattered to her? Her phone buzzed again. Not Volkov this time. The number was local. Ms. Carter, this is Agent Chen with the FBI. We know what happened at the Volkov property. We can protect you if you come in now. Call me. Lena deleted the message. An hour passed. 2. Dawn turned to morning, morning to afternoon. She paced the room, unable to eat the food the guards brought, unable to think about anything except Volkov facing down 50 armed men. At 3 p.m., her phone rang. Volkov's number. Are you okay? She answered immediately. It's over. His voice sounded tired, strained, but alive. Victor is dead. His organization is broken. You're safe now. Relief flooded through her, so intense it made her dizzy. Are you hurt? Some. Nothing serious. That's not an answer. A low laugh. Come see for yourself. Dmitri is bringing you back. Back to the mansion? Yes, we need to talk. And Lena? His voice softened. I kept my promise. I came back. You haven't come back yet. You're still at the mansion. Then I guess you'll have to come to me. The drive back felt longer than the escape had been. Dmitri said nothing, but his body language spoke volumes, tension slowly draining away, the alertness of crisis fading into exhaustion. The mansion looked like a war zone. Scorch marks on the walls, shattered windows, bullet holes pockmarking the stone facade. But the armed guards had been replaced by cleaning crews, and the chaos had settled into aftermath. Dmitri led her inside through hallways showing damage from the assault, up the stairs to Volkov's study. The door was open. Volkov stood at the windows, new glass already installed, looking out over his grounds with his back to her. Leave us, he said without turning. Dmitri nodded and closed the door. Lena approached slowly, taking in the details. Blood on Volkov's shirt, fresh blood, a cut across his left temple, the way he held his right arm slightly away from his body, suggesting an injury he didn't want to aggravate. You said nothing serious. It's not, compared to what could have happened. He turned finally, and his eyes were hollow, empty. Victor's dead. 17 of his top men are dead. I sent a message to every family on the East Coast. You don't threaten what's mine and live. How many of your people died? 3. Good men, loyal. His jaw tightened. Their families will be taken care of, compensated. But they're still dead because Victor wanted revenge and you were convenient leverage. Lena moved closer, professional instinct overriding everything else. Let me see your injuries. They're fine. Adrian. The use of his first name made him look at her sharply. Let me see. He pulled off his shirt slowly, revealing a patchwork of violence, a bullet graze across his ribs, a deep cut on his right shoulder, bruises already darkening his skin. Nothing life-threatening, but painful. Brutal. Lena's hands moved over him automatically, assessing damage, checking for hidden injuries. Her fingers found the new stitches she'd placed, still holding despite everything. You reopened some of these. I'll heal. You need to be more careful. I need to keep you safe. That matters more than careful. She looked up at him, this man who'd just killed 17 people and spoke about it with the same tone he used to thank her for medical care. What did you do? Exactly. Do you really want to know? Yes. Volkov's eyes searched hers, looking for something. Victor was at his club in Brighton Beach. I walked in with 20 men, told everyone who wasn't family to leave. Then I put a bullet in Victor's head and told his lieutenants they had two choices. Swear loyalty to me or die tonight. His voice was flat, emotionless. 14 chose death. 3 chose loyalty. You executed them. Yes. And you're telling me this because I want you to know what I am, what I'm capable of. You keep seeing the man you saved, the patient who needed help. But I'm also the man who kills without hesitation when someone threatens what's mine. He stepped closer, his hands coming up to frame her face. I want you to know that, understand that, before you make any decisions about me. Lena should have been horrified, should have run. But looking into his eyes, she saw the truth beneath the violence. A man who'd chosen brutality not because he enjoyed it, but because it was the only language his world understood. Protection through fear, safety through strength. You did it for me, she whispered. All of it. The tracking device, the attack, Victor. It was all about protecting me. Yes. Why? Because somewhere between that first wound and this moment, you became essential. His thumb brushed across her cheek. Because I've spent 10 years building walls, keeping everyone at distance, trusting no one. Then you walked into my life and looked at me like I was worth saving, like I was more than just the violence I'm capable of. You are more than that. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, I just proved I'm exactly what everyone thinks I am. A killer. A monster. His voice turned rough. The FBI is right. People who get close to me end up dead or compromised. You should run, Lena. You should take that agent's card and disappear into witness protection before I destroy you too. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. What's safe for you matters. Lena pulled back, anger cutting through her confusion. Don't make that choice for me. You don't get to tell me what's safe or what I should do. I'm not a child, and I'm not some fragile thing that needs protection from reality. Reality is that 3 of my men died today. That you were used as bait because Victor saw weakness in my armor. That the FBI wants to use you against me. That's your reality now, whether you chose it or not. And whose fault is that? The words came out sharper than she intended. You're the one who had me brought back here. You're the one who said I'm under your protection. You're the one who made me important to you. Don't turn around now and tell me I should leave when you're the reason I can't. Volkov stared at her, something like pain crossing his face. I'm trying to do the right thing. The right thing would have been letting me walk away after that first wound. But you didn't. You pulled me deeper, paid me, protected me, made me matter. And now you want to push me away to ease your conscience? Lena stepped close again, close enough to feel the heat coming off his skin. I'm already involved, Adrian. I'm already compromised. The FBI already knows. Victor's people already targeted me. Sending me away doesn't change any of that. Then what do you want? I want the truth about what happens next, about what you want from me, about whether I'm a responsibility you're trying to discharge, or something more. His hands framed her face again, and this time when he spoke, his voice was raw with honesty. You're everything more. You're the first person in a decade who makes me want something beyond power and survival. You're the reason I burned Victor's entire operation to the ground instead of just killing him quietly. You're what I think about when I should be thinking about business. His forehead pressed against hers. You're dangerous to me, Lena Carter. More dangerous than any enemy, because you make me want things I can't have. Why can't you have them? Because I'm a monster who kills people. You're a man who protects what he values. There's a difference. Is there? Lena pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Yes. Because monsters don't feel guilty. Monsters don't offer freedom. Monsters don't tell the truth even when it makes them look bad. Her hands came up to his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her palms. You're not a monster, Adrian. You're just a man trying to survive in a world that requires violence. That doesn't mean you're not capable of other things. Like what? Like caring. Like protecting. Like being human with someone who sees you that way. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Volkov kissed her, fierce and desperate, tasting like violence and vulnerability mixed together. Lena kissed him back, pouring into it all the fear and relief and impossible connection she'd been fighting since that first night in the ER. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Volkov rested his forehead against hers. I can't promise you safety. My world doesn't allow it. I know. I can't promise you normal. This life, it's always going to be complicated. I know that too. And I can't promise I won't do terrible things to protect you, because I will. Without hesitation. Lena's hands tightened on his chest. Then promise me something else. Promise me honesty. Promise me choice. Promise me that whatever happens between us, it's because we both want it, not because you've decided what's best for me. I promise. He kissed her again, softer this time. Stay tonight. Let me take care of these injuries properly. Then tomorrow you decide. Stay or go. I'll respect whatever you choose. And if I stay, then you accept all of it. The danger, the violence, the FBI watching, the fact that my enemies will always see you as leverage. All of it. Lena looked into his winter gray eyes and saw the truth there. He was giving her the choice he'd taken away by pulling her into his world. A chance to walk away knowing exactly what staying would cost. Tomorrow, she agreed. Tonight, let me clean those wounds before they get infected. He smiled, tired but genuine. Always the nurse. Always. She cleaned his injuries in his private bathroom, falling into the familiar rhythm of medical care. But this time felt different, intimate. Each touch of gauze against skin, each careful suture check carried weight beyond professional duty. When she finished, Volkov caught her hand. Stay with me tonight. Not for anything except, I just want you here. Want to know you're safe. So she did. She curled up in his massive bed, fully clothed, and he wrapped around her like a shield. And for the first time in years, Lena felt something she'd forgotten existed. Protected, valued, seen. Tomorrow she'd make her choice. Tonight, she let herself rest. Lena woke to unfamiliar silence. Not the constant hum of traffic from her Astoria apartment, not the beeping monitors and overhead pages of the hospital. Just quiet, broken only by steady breathing beside her. Adrian was still asleep, one arm draped across her waist, his face relaxed in a way she'd never seen while he was conscious. The hard edges softened, the lethal control gone. For a moment, he looked almost peaceful. Almost. Even in sleep, tension lived in the set of his shoulders, the way his other hand rested near the nightstand where she'd noticed a gun the night before. A man who never fully surrendered to rest because surrender meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant death in his world. Lena carefully extracted herself from his hold and moved to the windows. Dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, illuminating the grounds below where workers were already repairing damage from yesterday's assault. Bullet holes filled with putty, scorched grass replanted, blood washed away like it had never existed, evidence erased, life continuing, as if 17 men hadn't died less than 24 hours ago. You're thinking too loud. She turned to find Adrian awake, propped up on one elbow, watching her with those winter gray eyes that saw too much. How can you tell? Your shoulders, they get tight when you're wrestling with something. He sat up slowly, favoring his injured side. What is it? I should be at work. My shift started 3 hours ago. I called the hospital, told them you had a family emergency and needed time off. Lena's eyebrows rose. You called my job? Had Dmitri do it. Less suspicious than a man with a Russian accent claiming to be your family. Adrian stood, moving to where she stood by the window. You needed rest. You've barely slept in days. You can't just make decisions about my life. I can when those decisions keep you safe and healthy. He touched her chin, turning her face toward him. You were exhausted, Lena, running on fumes. One more shift and you would have collapsed. He was right, which made it more irritating. I still should have been asked. You would have said no. Exactly, because it's my choice. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. Old habits, controlling situations, managing variables, it's how I've survived. His thumb brushed across her cheek. But you're not a variable to manage. I'll do better. The apology surprised her. Men like Adrian Volkov didn't apologize, didn't admit fault, didn't promise to change behavior. Yet here he stood, acknowledging his mistake with a sincerity that made her chest ache. Thank you. Don't thank me for basic respect. You deserve more than that. He stepped back, giving her space. There's breakfast downstairs, and clothes in the closet. I had someone bring options in your size. Wear whatever you want, or wear nothing. Your choice. Lena moved to the closet, finding it stocked with expensive casual wear, still tagged from what looked like high-end boutiques, jeans that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget, sweaters and soft cashmere, everything in her exact size, which meant Adrian had been paying attention to details she didn't realize he'd noticed. She chose jeans and a simple black sweater, then headed downstairs to find Adrian already in the kitchen, moving around with surprising domesticity despite the bandages visible under his shirt. You cook? I survive. There's a difference. He gestured to the counter where he'd laid out coffee, fresh fruit, and what looked like Russian pastries. But I know how to use a phone to order good food. They ate in surprisingly comfortable silence, the morning light streaming through repaired windows, the sounds of construction distant but constant. Lena found herself studying Adrian when he wasn't looking, the way he moved with precision even while injured, the thoughtfulness in how he'd arranged the food, the small tells that suggested he was nervous despite his controlled exterior. You're staring, he said without looking up from his coffee. You're interesting. That's one word for it. He met her eyes. Most people use words like dangerous, criminal, monster. Most people don't see you make breakfast. This isn't breakfast. This is catered food I had delivered. Still counts. Lena took a sip of coffee, perfect temperature, exactly the right amount of cream. He'd been paying attention to that too. How long have you been doing this? The Bratva life. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, and Lena thought he might not answer. Then he set down his cup and leaned back against the counter. Since I was 17. Almost 20 years now. What happened when you were 17? My family was killed. Father, mother, 2 younger sisters, wiped out by a rival organization while I was at university in Moscow. His voice went flat, emotionless in the way that meant the emotions were too big to show. I came home to find my house burned, my family dead, and a message spray-painted on what remained of our gate. Volkov blood washes clean. Lena's breath caught. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But his hands had curled into fists. I had 2 choices. Run and spend my life hiding or rebuild. I chose to rebuild. From nothing? From ashes and rage and a very long list of people who needed to pay. Adrian's smile held no warmth. It took me 3 years to find everyone responsible. Another 2 to kill them all. By then, I'd built enough of an organization that walking away wasn't an option. Do you regret it? Which part? The revenge or the empire? Both. He considered that, his gaze distant. No. The revenge gave me purpose when I had nothing. The empire gave me power so no one could ever take everything from me again. But sometimes I wonder who I would have been if that night had never happened, if I'd finished university, become whatever normal thing I was supposed to be. You'd still be you, just with different circumstances. You think so? I know so. The core of who we are doesn't change based on what happens to us. It just gets revealed. Lena moved closer, drawn by the vulnerability in his voice. You protect the people loyal to you. You keep your promises. You value life enough to feel guilty when you take it. Those things aren't because of your circumstances. They're because of who you are underneath everything else. Adrian's hand came up to her face, cradling her cheek. How do you do that? Do what? Make me feel like I'm not just the sum of my worst actions. Because you're not. No one is. He kissed her then, soft and searching, like he was trying to find something in her he'd lost in himself. Lena kissed him back, tasting coffee and sadness and the desperate hope that maybe, somehow, this impossible thing between them could work. When they finally broke apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I need to show you something, before you make your choice about staying, something that might change your mind. What? Come with me. He led her through the mansion to a part she hadn't seen before, a wing that required passing through multiple security checkpoints and locked doors. Finally, they entered what looked like a command center, multiple monitors showing security feeds, computer systems, file cabinets, maps of New York covered in markings she didn't understand. This is the heart of my operation, Adrian said. Everything I control, everything I protect, it all flows through here. Lena looked around, trying to process what she was seeing. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand what you'd be accepting if you stay. This isn't just about me. It's about all of this. He gestured to the screens. I run shipping operations, some legal, some not. I control territory across 3 boroughs. I employ 200 people directly, another 1,000 indirectly. I move money, goods, sometimes people who need to disappear. People trafficking? No, never that. I move refugees, people escaping bad situations, witnesses who need protection from people worse than me. But it's still illegal. He pulled up files on one of the computers. I launder money through legitimate businesses, restaurants, construction companies, import firms. I bribe officials. I trade favors with people in power. And yes, I hurt people who threaten what's mine. Lena processed this carefully. Why are you telling me all this? Because the FBI isn't wrong. I am a criminal. I do break the law. And anyone associated with me becomes complicit in that. I want you to know exactly what you'd be accepting. She studied the screens, the evidence of his empire laid bare. Part of her wanted to be horrified, should have been horrified. But another part, the part that had worked in emergency rooms and seen how the system failed people, understood the gray areas he operated in. The refugees you move, where do they come from? Everywhere. Syria, Ukraine, parts of Africa. People fleeing war, persecution, situations where legal immigration takes years they don't have. Adrian pulled up a file showing photos of families. I get them out, get them here, help them start over. That's not evil. It's illegal. So is letting people die while bureaucracy moves at a crawl. Lena met his eyes. I'm not naive, Adrian. I know you do terrible things. You've told me, you've shown me, but I also know you do things the system won't. Help people who fall through the cracks. Don't make me into some kind of anti-hero. I do those things because they're profitable or because they serve my interests. Do you? Or do you do them because somewhere under all that armor, you remember what it's like to be powerless, to have everything taken away? Adrian's jaw worked, and for a moment she thought he might argue. Instead, he pulled up another file. This is what the FBI has on me, or what they think they have. The screen filled with surveillance photos, transaction records, witness statements. They've been building a RICO case for 3 years. It's not solid enough yet, but they're getting closer. Agent Chen, the one who contacted you, she's smart, persistent. She'll use whatever leverage she can find, including me, especially you. They'll offer you immunity, protection, money. They'll tell you I'm manipulating you, that you're a victim, that you need to cooperate before you get charged as an accessory. Lena's stomach tightened. Would I get charged? Probably not for the medical care. That's protected under Good Samaritan laws. But if they can prove you knew what I was and continued helping, they could make your life very difficult. Adrian closed the files. I'm showing you this so you understand the stakes. Staying means the FBI becomes a constant threat, means always looking over your shoulder, means your life gets complicated in ways you can't imagine. And if I leave? I disappear from your life completely, pay off your debts so you never have to worry about money, erase any evidence connecting us. Make sure the FBI has no reason to pursue you. His voice roughened. Give you back the normal life you deserve. Lena turned away from the screens, her mind racing. Everything he was saying made sense. The smart choice, the safe choice, was to walk away. take his money, his protection from a distance, and return to her ordinary existence. But that existence had been slowly killing her. The endless overnight shifts, the mountain of debt, the isolation of a life half-lived. She'd been surviving, not living, going through motions without purpose beyond making it through another day. Adrian had awakened something in her. Not just attraction, though that was there too, but purpose. The feeling of mattering to someone, of being seen as more than just a nurse or a paycheck or a problem to solve. Can I ask you something? Anything. If I stay, what does that look like? Practically speaking. Adrian moved closer, hope flickering in his eyes before he shuttered it. Whatever you want it to look like. Keep your job if you want. Keep your apartment. Live your life however you choose. I'm not asking you to become part of my organization or change who you are. Then what are you asking? To let me be part of your life. To accept my protection. To trust that when I say I'll keep you safe, I mean it. His hands framed her face gently. To give this thing between us a chance to be something real instead of just adrenaline and proximity. Oh, what if the FBI forces my hand? What if they make me choose between testifying against you or going to prison? Then you testify. I won't ask you to go to prison for me. Lena searched his face for deception and found none. You'd really let me testify against you? Yes. Because putting you in danger or asking you to sacrifice your freedom goes against everything I promised. Your safety matters more than mine. That's insane. That's love, Lena. The words hung between them, raw and honest, or the closest thing to it I'm capable of, putting your well-being above my own self-interest. Her breath caught. You love me? We barely know each other. I know enough. I know you're brave and stubborn and compassionate. I know you see good in people everyone else has written off. I know you walked into danger 3 times to save lives, including mine, when the smart thing was to run. Adrian's thumb brushed across her cheek. Maybe it's not love yet. Maybe it's just the potential for it. But I want the chance to find out. Lena closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the enormity of what he was offering. A life tangled with his. Safety and danger in equal measure. The chance at something real with someone who saw her completely and valued her anyway. I need time to think, to process all of this. Of course. Well, take all the time you need. Can I ask one more thing? Anything. If I stay and this becomes real and the FBI does build their case, would you leave? Give up the empire, the power, all of it, and just disappear with me? Adrian was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like he was trying to memorize the feeling. Yes. If it came down to losing you or losing everything else, I'd burn it all down and disappear. His voice was barely a whisper against her hair. I built this empire because I had nothing else. No family. No purpose beyond survival and revenge. But you make me want something different. Something more. What if you resent me for it later? What if you wake up one day and hate me for being the reason you lost your power? Impossible. Because power without purpose is just empty control. You give me purpose. The rest is just details. Lena pulled back enough to see his face, searching for truth in his eyes. What she found there stole her breath. Complete sincerity mixed with a vulnerability that couldn't be faked. This man who commanded armies and controlled criminal empires was offering to give it all up for the possibility of a future with her. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. Only fools rush into this kind of life without fear. What if I'm not strong enough? What if the violence, the danger, the constant threat, what if it breaks me? Then we stop. We walk away together before that happens. Adrian's hands cradled her face. I need you to understand something, Lena. You're not trapped. Not by me, not by this situation. If at any point you want out, you tell me and we figure out how to make that happen safely. No judgment, no consequences, just freedom. You keep saying that, but I don't think you understand that I'm already trapped. Lena placed her hands over his. Not by you, by myself. By the fact that walking away from you feels impossible now. Like I'd be leaving part of myself behind. Is that such a bad thing? I don't know yet. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dmitri stepped in, his expression apologetic. "Boss, sorry to interrupt, but Agent Chen is here. At the gate, says she needs to speak with you and Ms. Carter." Adrian's face hardened. "Tell her we're not receiving visitors." "She has a warrant. Says she can execute it here or take you both to federal building for questioning." Lena's heart rate spiked. "Can she do that?" "Yes," Adrian said grimly. "The question is what the warrant is for. Dmitri, what are the charges?" "Material witness subpoena for Ms. Carter. She's required to testify before a grand jury about your medical treatment and any knowledge of your business operations." The room tilted slightly. "I'm being subpoenaed?" "It's a fishing expedition," Adrian said, his voice carefully controlled despite the tension in his body. "They don't have enough for a real warrant, so they're using grand jury process to force your cooperation, hoping you'll say something incriminating about me." "What do I do?" "You could refuse, claim Fifth Amendment protection. But that makes me look guilty of something. Or you could testify. Tell the truth, that you provided emergency medical care and know nothing about my business." Adrian's expression turned calculating. "Chen is betting you'll be intimidated enough to give her something useful. But there's nothing to give. You genuinely don't know operational details. What about what you just showed me? The command center? The files? All of it. You saw computer screens, monitors, nothing specific enough to use as evidence without context you don't have." He turned to Dmitri. "Tell Agent Chen that Ms. Carter will comply with the subpoena. Schedule it for next week. That gives us time to prepare." Dmitri nodded and left. Adrian immediately pulled out his phone, dialing a number. "I need a lawyer, criminal defense, federal experience, available immediately." A pause. "Yes, for a material witness subpoena. Grand jury testimony." Another pause. "Good. Send them to the mansion in an hour." He hung up and took Lena's hands. "Listen to me carefully. You're going to have the best legal representation available. They'll prep you, tell you exactly how to answer questions, protect you from any tricks Chen tries to pull. You'll be fine." "You sound very certain." "Because I am. You haven't done anything wrong. You saved a patient's life. That's it." His grip tightened slightly. "But Lena, this is what I meant about your life getting complicated. The FBI isn't going to stop. They'll keep pushing, keep looking for angles, keep trying to use you as leverage. Are you prepared for that?" Was she? Could she handle federal agents questioning her, lawyers prepping her testimony, the constant pressure of an investigation circling closer? The smart answer was no. The safe answer was to take whatever deal the FBI offered and disappear into witness protection or immunity, or whatever safety they could provide. But looking at Adrian, seeing the controlled fear in his eyes, fear for her, not himself, Lena realized something crucial. She'd spent 6 years working overnight shifts specifically because they were hard. Because the trauma cases, the impossible saves, the life or death decisions made her feel alive in ways nothing else did. She'd been running toward difficulty her entire adult life, seeking out challenges that tested her limits. This was just another kind of challenge, another test, and she'd never backed down from those before. "I'm prepared," she said, "but I need something from you first." "Anything." "Complete honesty. No more half-truths or protected information. If I'm going to testify under oath about what I know, I need to actually know what I'm protecting and why." Adrian studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay, complete honesty, starting with this." He pulled her toward the windows overlooking his grounds. "Everything you see here, I built from blood and determination. I've killed 37 people personally, ordered the deaths of at least 100 more. I've broken laws in 3 countries. I've made enemies who would torture you slowly just to hurt me, and I've enjoyed some of it. The power, the control, the fear I inspire." Lena listened, forcing herself not to look away from the truth. "But I've also saved lives," he continued. "Refugees like I showed you. Women escaping trafficking situations. Kids caught in gang violence who needed a way out. I've funded hospitals in neighborhoods the government ignores. I've paid for funerals when families couldn't afford them. I've protected communities that the system abandoned." He turned to face her. "I'm not good or evil. I'm both. And I'm asking you to accept that complexity. What about Victor, the 17 men you killed? Victor was planning to kidnap you, torture you on video to force my compliance, then kill you anyway once he got what he wanted. Adrian's voice went cold. I killed him, and everyone who helped plan that, because the alternative was your death. I'd do it again. I'd kill 100 more if it kept you safe. That's not healthy. This kind of violence, this obsessive protection, I know. I'm not claiming it's healthy or right. I'm telling you what I'm capable of, what you're accepting if you stay. He stepped closer, his intensity almost overwhelming. I will burn the world down to keep you safe, Lena. That's not romantic. It's terrifying, but it's the truth. She should run. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this man was dangerous, that his brand of protection was possession, that loving him would mean accepting violence as the price of safety. But the irrational part, the part that had kept her going to his mansion, treating his wounds, sleeping in his bed, that part recognized something in Adrian that matched something in herself. The willingness to go to extremes, the inability to walk away from people who needed help, the deep, aching loneliness of living a life where no one really saw you. I need to go home, she said, to my apartment, to think clearly away from all this. Pain flickered across Adrian's face, quickly hidden. Of course, I'll have Dimitri. No, I need to go alone. Take the subway. Walk my normal route. Remember who I am outside of this. It's not safe. Victor's dead. You said his organization is broken. There are always others. People looking for weakness, opportunity. Adrian. She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. You just promised complete honesty. So honestly, am I a prisoner here? Is this protection or control? His jaw worked, conflict clear in his expression. You're not a prisoner. You can leave whenever you want. But I'd prefer you take security because the thought of something happening to you makes me feel like I'm dying. That's honest. Thank you. Lena kissed him softly. I'll compromise. Let Dimitri drive me home, but then I need space. Time alone to process everything. Can you give me that? How much time? I don't know. A day. Maybe 2. The lawyer will be here in an hour. Then I'll meet with them first. Get prepared for this grand jury thing. Then I go home and think. Adrian pulled her close, his arms tight around her. Promise me something. What? If you decide to walk away, do it cleanly. Don't try to protect me or soften the blow. Just tell me straight and let me handle it. I promise. The lawyer turned out to be a sharp woman in her 40s named Rebecca Torres, who specialized in federal criminal defense. She sat across from Lena in Adrian's study, legal pad in hand, and explained the grand jury process with clinical precision. They'll ask about your medical treatment of Mr. Volkov, dates, times, nature of injuries. They'll ask what you know about his business, who you've seen him with, conversations you've overheard. Rebecca's pen tapped against the pad. The key is to answer honestly but narrowly. Don't volunteer information. Don't speculate. Don't try to be helpful. Just the facts. Exactly. You treated a patient. You provided medical care. Anything beyond that is outside your knowledge base. What if they ask about the tracking device, the attack? You were brought to a safe location during a crisis. You had no knowledge of the attack's nature or participants. You were kept safe until the danger passed. Rebecca met her eyes. All true. All defensible. Nothing that implicates you or Mr. Volkov in criminal activity. They prepped for 2 more hours, running through potential questions and appropriate answers. By the time Rebecca left, Lena's head ached with the weight of legal strategy and careful phrasing. Ready to go home? Adrian asked. Yes, very ready. Dimitri drove her back to Astoria in silence, though she could feel his attention constantly sweeping their surroundings, watching for threats she couldn't see. When they arrived at her building, he walked her to her door. Boss wanted me to give you this. He handed her a phone, sleek, expensive, already programmed. Secure line. His number is the only one in there. You need anything, you call. What if I need space from him too? Then don't call, but keep it charged. Dimitri's scarred face softened slightly. He's not perfect. Does too much, controls too much, thinks protection means wrapping you in steel. But his heart's in the right place. He cares about you more than anything else in his world. How do you know? Because I've worked for him 15 years. Never seen him like this. Never seen him scared before. Dmitri headed back toward the stairs. Whatever you decide, decide for yourself. Not for him. Not for what you think you should do, for what you actually want. Then he was gone, and Lena was finally alone in her apartment. It looked exactly the same. Tiny kitchen, worn furniture, view of the building across the street. But somehow it felt different, smaller. Like she'd outgrown it without realizing. Or maybe she'd just gotten used to space and luxury and the feeling of being important to someone who commanded empires. She made tea and sat by the window, watching her neighborhood wake up to another ordinary day. The bodega opening, the old woman feeding cats. People heading to work, to school, to lives uncomplicated by criminal investigations and grand jury subpoenas. Her phone, her real phone, not Adrian's secure line, buzzed with messages. Marcus asking if she was okay. The hospital confirming her leave. Bills demanding payment. The detritus of her real life, waiting for her to return to it. She could walk away from Adrian, testify minimally to the grand jury, return to her overnight shifts and mountain of debt and lonely existence. Safe, predictable, slowly dying of isolation and exhaustion. Or she could choose the terrifying unknown. Choose Adrian with all his violence and protection and complicated morality. Choose a life where FBI agents questioned her, where enemies might target her, where every day carried risk but also purpose and passion and the feeling of being fully, completely seen. Lena sat in her apartment for 3 hours, weighing her choices. Then she picked up Adrian's phone and called him. He answered immediately. "Lena? I've made my decision." Silence. She could almost feel him bracing for rejection. "I'm staying," she said. "Not because I'm scared, not because I'm trapped, not because I think I can fix you or save you or change you." She took a breath. "Because I want to. Because this terrifying, complicated, dangerous thing between us feels more real than anything I've had in years. Because you see me as more than just a nurse or a problem or a responsibility. Lena, I'm not finished. I'm staying, but on my terms. I keep my job. I keep this apartment. I live my life how I choose. You get to be part of it, but you don't get to control it. Protection is fine, possession is not. Can you agree to that?" Another pause. Then his voice, rough with emotion. "Yes. Whatever terms you want, whatever boundaries you need, just yes. Then I'm coming back, tonight, after my shift. And we're going to figure this out together. The FBI, the grand jury, all of it. You don't have a shift tonight. I had Adrian." "Right. Your choice. Your life." A sound that might have been a laugh. "I'm going to be terrible at this, at not controlling everything." "Probably, but I'm patient. I work with difficult cases all the time." "Comparing me to your trauma patients?" "If the parallel fits." Lena smiled despite herself. "I'll see you tomorrow morning, after I work my shift, which you don't get to cancel." "Understood. I'll be here. Waiting. Probably badly." "Good. That makes 2 of us." She hung up and sat in the quiet apartment, heart racing, hands shaking slightly. She'd just committed herself to a life she couldn't fully imagine, chosen danger over safety, complexity over simplicity. A man who'd killed dozens over the empty security of solitude, either the bravest or stupidest decision of her life. Time would tell which. Lena's overnight shift felt both familiar and foreign. The same fluorescent lights, the same chaos of the ER, the same parade of broken bodies needing to be made whole. But she moved through it differently now, hyper-aware that her life had split into before and after. Before Adrian Volkov, she'd been invisible, going through motions. After him, she felt like every choice mattered, like she was finally living instead of just surviving. Marcus cornered her during a lull around 4 a.m., his expression worried. "You came back." "I work here." "Of course I came back." "Lena, the FBI agents came by again, yesterday, asked more questions about you and Volkov." He lowered his voice. "They know you've been to his property multiple times. They're building something, and you're part of it." "I know I'm being subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury." Marcus's face went pale. "What? When?" "Next week. My lawyer says it's routine, just asking about medical care I provided. Your lawyer? Lena, normal nurses don't need lawyers. This is serious. You could go to prison if they think you're lying or protecting him. I'm not protecting him. I'm protecting myself by being prepared. Lena checked the patient board, noting a new trauma incoming. And before you ask, yes, I know what I'm doing. No, I'm not being coerced. I'm making my own choices. Even if those choices destroy your life? My life was already destroyed, Marcus. I was drowning in debt, working myself to death, completely alone. At least now I'm drowning with purpose. The trauma came in before he could respond. A construction accident, multiple injuries, all hands needed. Lena fell into the rhythm of emergency medicine, losing herself in the focused work of keeping someone alive. This was what she was good at, what made sense when nothing else did. By the time her shift ended at 7 a.m., exhaustion had settled into her bones. But she'd promised Adrian she'd come to him after work, and she kept her promises. Dmitri was waiting outside, leaning against the black SUV like he'd known exactly when she'd emerge. How did you know what time my shift ended? Boss asked. I looked it up. He opened the door for her. He's been pacing since midnight, drove the house staff crazy. He's nervous? Terrified. Won't admit it, but yeah. Dmitri pulled into traffic. Never seen him like this. Usually he's ice cold, totally controlled. You've got him all twisted up. Lena smiled despite her tiredness. Good. He's had me twisted up since the moment I met him. The mansion looked peaceful in the early morning light, the repairs nearly complete, no visible signs of the violence that had erupted there days ago. Adrian met her at the door before Dmitri even had the car fully stopped, his relief visible. You're okay. I worked a hospital shift, not a war zone. For me, those carry equal risk right now. He pulled her inside, hands framing her face, searching for something. You're exhausted. That's what overnight shifts do. You need sleep. I need to talk to you first, about the grand jury, about what happens after. Adrian led her to the study where coffee and breakfast waited. He'd learned her preferences, she realized. Strong coffee with cream, fresh fruit, simple food she could eat quickly. Small details that showed he paid attention even when he seemed focused elsewhere. Rebecca called yesterday, he said as they settled on the leather couch. She's confident about the testimony. The questions will be predictable, the answers straightforward. You'll be fine. That's not what worries me. Then what does? Lena set down her coffee, gathering her thoughts. What happens after I testify? The FBI doesn't just give up. Agent Chen seemed determined. Eventually they'll find something or manufacture something or pressure me harder. How do we handle that? Adrian was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming against his thigh, a rare tell of agitation. I've been thinking about that. About what it means to keep you safe while respecting your independence. And I think we need to change some things. Not about us, about how I operate. He stood, moving to the windows. For 20 years, I've built power through fear and control, through being the most dangerous person in any room. But that makes everyone around me a target, including you. You can't just stop being who you are. No, but I can evolve. Dimitri's been pushing me for years to legitimize more of the business, move away from the gray areas, invest in legal operations, reduce exposure. Adrian turned back to her. I've resisted because power in my world comes from being willing to do what others won't. But maybe it's time to reconsider. Lena's heart picked up speed. What are you saying? I'm saying that if keeping you means walking away from parts of this life, I'll do it. Not all at once. That would create power vacuums and violence, but gradually, strategically. His eyes met hers with fierce intensity. You make me want a future beyond just survival and revenge. I want to build something that doesn't require constant violence to maintain. That's a huge change. You're a huge reason. He crossed back to her, taking her hands. I told you I'd burn it all down if it came to choosing between you and the Empire. This is me starting that process. Controlled burn instead of explosion. What about the people who depend on you? Your organization, the refugees you help, all of it? They'll be taken care of. Better, actually. Legitimate operations mean more stability, less risk, better long-term prospects. Adrian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. I'm not abandoning my responsibilities. I'm evolving them. There's a difference. Alina studied his face, looking for doubt or resentment, finding only determination. This is really what you want? Not just what you think I want to hear. Honestly, part of me is terrified. The Empire is all I've known for 2 decades. Letting go of control, trusting legitimate systems, becoming someone other than the most feared man in New York. It's terrifying. He pulled her closer. But more terrifying is losing you, or worse, corrupting you. Turning you into something hard and cynical because you're constantly exposed to my world's darkness. I'm tougher than you think. I know you are. But tough shouldn't mean damaged. You deserve a life that doesn't require armor just to survive. The words settled between them, heavy with promise and uncertainty. Lena wanted to believe it was possible, that Adrian could transform from criminal kingpin to something resembling legitimate, that they could build a life together that didn't require constant looking over their shoulders. But she was also realistic enough to know change wouldn't happen overnight. This evolution you're talking about, how long will it take? Years? Maybe 5 to fully transition everything, but we can start immediately. Adrian pulled out his phone, showing her a document. I've already had lawyers draw up plans, divesting from anything involving drugs or weapons, expanding the refugee assistance program with proper legal channels, investing more heavily in the legitimate businesses, turning them from fronts into actual operations. And the FBI investigation? Rebecca thinks if I start cooperating on smaller cases, giving them information on actual traffickers, real criminals, they'll back off me. See me as an asset rather than a target. His expression turned wry. Playing both sides, using my connections to feed them intelligence while slowly legitimizing my operations. It's risky, but possible. You'd become an informant? Carefully, selectively, only on people who deserve it, traffickers, predators, the ones even other criminals despise. Adrian's voice hardened. I've spent 20 years building power. Time to use it for something beyond just survival. Lena processed this, her mind spinning with implications. The grand jury testimony. If you're planning to cooperate with the FBI eventually anyway, should I? No. You testify exactly as planned. Limited, truthful, protective of yourself first. He squeezed her hands. My cooperation will be on my terms, through proper channels, with immunity agreements in place. Your testimony is separate. You're a witness who provided medical care. Nothing more. Agent Chen won't see it that way. Agent Chen can think whatever she wants. Rebecca will make sure your testimony is airtight. They talked for another hour, working through scenarios and contingencies, until Lena could barely keep her eyes open. Adrian noticed immediately. You need sleep. Real sleep, not 3 hours between shifts. I can go home. To here. Please. He stood, pulling her up with him. I had the guest room prepared. Your own space, your own privacy. Just sleep knowing you're safe. Lena wanted to argue, to maintain her independence by returning to her apartment, but exhaustion won. Just for today. I have another shift tomorrow night. Okay, just for today. The guest room turned out to be larger than her entire Astoria apartment, with a bathroom that had a tub big enough to swim in and a bed that felt like sleeping on clouds. Lena barely managed to shower before collapsing into it, asleep almost instantly. She woke 16 hours later to find twilight painting the windows purple and a note on the nightstand in Adrian's angular handwriting. Didn't want to wake you. Food in the kitchen whenever you're hungry. I'm in the study working. Come find me when you're ready. A. Lena showered again, borrowed clothes from the closet Adrian had stocked. He really had been paying attention to her size, and made her way downstairs. The mansion was quieter at night, most of the staff gone, just a few security personnel moving through shadows. She found Adrian exactly where he'd said, surrounded by paperwork and laptop screens, looking tired but focused. He glanced up when she entered, and his expression softened immediately. You slept. Like the dead. What time is it? Almost 10 p.m. You slept through the entire day. He closed his laptop. Hungry? Starving. They raided the kitchen together, Adrian surprisingly domestic as he assembled sandwiches and found chips and poured drinks. They ate at the kitchen island like normal people, and for a moment Lena could almost forget the armed guards outside and the criminal empire being slowly dismantled around them. "I talked to Rebecca while you slept," Adrian said. "The grand jury is scheduled for Thursday, 3 days from now." "I'll be ready." "I know you will." He set down his sandwich. "But I need to tell you something about what might happen after you testify." Lena's stomach tightened. "What?" "Agent Chen is smart. She'll use your testimony to apply more pressure, might try to subpoena you again, or offer deals, or threaten charges if she thinks she can make something stick." Adrian's jaw set. "I won't let her hurt you, but that might mean accelerating my timeline with the FBI, offering cooperation sooner than planned to get them to back off you. That puts you at more risk. Acceptable risk if it protects you." "Adrian, Lena, I need you to understand something." He took her hands, his grip firm. "For 20 years, I've made every decision based on what maximized my power and minimized my vulnerability. But you've changed that calculation. Your safety, your freedom, your happiness, those matter more than anything else. Even my own security. That's not healthy. You can't just, I'm not being self-destructive. I'm being strategic. The FBI wants my cooperation more than my arrest. I have information they need, connections they can use. If I offer that in exchange for immunity and assurances about you, they'll take it." His eyes searched hers. "This isn't sacrifice. It's evolution. Becoming someone worthy of you." Lena's throat tightened. "You're already worthy." "No, but I'm working on it." The next 3 days passed in a strange blur. Lena worked her shifts, came home to Adrian's mansion, prepared with Rebecca for the grand jury testimony. The FBI investigation became a constant background presence, but somehow less threatening when faced together. Adrian kept his promise about not controlling her life. He didn't cancel shifts or make decisions without consulting her. When she needed space, he gave it. When she needed his presence, he was there. They were finding their rhythm, learning how to be together without losing themselves. Thursday arrived too quickly. Lena dressed in the conservative suit Rebecca had suggested, trying to calm her racing heart as Dmitri drove her to the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. "You'll be fine," Adrian had said that morning. "Just tell the truth. That's all you need to do." But walking into the courthouse, past security, and up to the grand jury room, Lena felt the weight of everything pressing down. One wrong word, one misunderstood answer, and she could implicate herself or Adrian or destroy the fragile future they were trying to build. Rebecca met her outside the grand jury room, confident and calm. "Remember everything we practiced. Answer the question asked, nothing more. Don't volunteer information. If you're unsure, say so. You're a nurse who provided medical care. That's your entire story." The grand jury room was smaller than Lena expected. 23 people seated in rows, a court reporter, and Agent Chen standing to the side with barely concealed anticipation. The question started simply. Had she treated Adrian Volkov? Yes. When? She provided dates. What were the nature of his injuries? She described them clinically. Did she know how he'd received the injuries? No, patients often didn't disclose that information. Then Agent Chen took over the questioning, and the tone shifted. "Ms. Carter, how many times have you been to Mr. Volkov's residence?" 3 times. "And what was the nature of those visits?" "Medical care. He'd developed an infection from the initial wound. Then I was asked to treat another patient at a different location." "Another patient? One of Mr. Volkov's associates?" "I didn't ask about their relationship. I was told someone needed medical help." "Did you not think it was strange that you were repeatedly asked to provide care outside a hospital setting?" Lena kept her voice steady. Patients refuse hospital care for many reasons. Religious beliefs, immigration status, financial concerns, privacy needs. My job is to provide care, not interrogate their choices. Agent Chen's eyes narrowed. "Did Mr. Volkov pay you for these services?" "Yes. Cash payment for services rendered." "How much?" Rebecca stood. "The payment amounts are not relevant to this investigation and may violate Mrs. Carter's privacy rights. Unless you're suggesting she was paid for something illegal, which she wasn't, the specific amounts are immaterial." Agent Chen backed off that line, but Lena could see her frustration building. The questions continued for another 90 minutes, circling the same territory, trying to establish that Lena knew about Adrian's criminal activities, that she'd been complicit somehow, that she could provide useful testimony about his operations. But there was nothing to provide. Lena genuinely didn't know operational details, hadn't witnessed crimes, had only provided medical care to people who needed it. Finally, the grand jury foreman thanked her for her time. Agent Chen's expression suggested she knew she hadn't gotten what she wanted. Outside the courthouse, Rebecca smiled for the first time all day. "You did perfectly, exactly right. Chen has nothing she can use." "So it's over?" "This part is. But Lena, she's going to keep looking, keep pushing. The FBI doesn't give up easily on targets like Volkov." "I know. We're prepared for that." Rebecca studied her carefully. "Are you? Because most people in your position would take immunity, testify against him, disappear into protection. You're choosing the harder path." "The harder path is the only one that leads where I want to go." Back at the mansion, Adrian was pacing the study like a caged animal. He spun when she entered, relief and anxiety warring on his face. "How did it go?" "Fine. Rebecca says Chen got nothing useful." Lena moved into his arms, letting herself lean into his solid presence. "It's done. That part. Anyway." "Thank God." His arms tightened around her. "I've been useless all day. Couldn't focus, couldn't work, just waiting." "I'm okay. We're okay." They stood like that for a long moment, both processing the fact that they'd cleared one major hurdle. Then Adrian pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "I did something while you were testifying, something I should have asked your permission for first, but I was terrified and making decisions badly." Lena's stomach dropped. "What did you do?" "I contacted Agent Chen's supervisor, offered full cooperation on 3 ongoing trafficking investigations in exchange for immunity and assurances that you won't be targeted further." His jaw tightened. "I gave them information that will lead to major arrests, real criminals doing real harm. But I did it without discussing it with you first." "You started cooperating, now, today." "Yes, because the thought of them coming after you again, putting you through more testimony, more pressure, I couldn't stand it." Adrian's hands cupped her face. "I'm sorry. I know I promised to consult you on major decisions, but this felt like life or death, and I chose to protect you over process." Lena processed this, her mind racing. He'd just fundamentally changed his relationship with law enforcement, made himself vulnerable in ways he'd spent 2 decades avoiding, all to protect her from further FBI scrutiny. "What did they say? The FBI?" "They're considering it. The information I provided is solid, enough to make major cases. If they accept my cooperation, I get immunity for past crimes not involving violence against innocents, and they agree to leave you alone." His expression turned grim. "It's not a guarantee yet, but it's a start. And if they don't accept, then we fight, together. But at least I tried." Lena pulled him down until their foreheads touched. "You're really doing this, becoming an informant, legitimizing your empire, changing everything. For you, for us, for a future that doesn't require constant violence." He kissed her softly. "I meant what I said. You give me purpose beyond just survival. I want to be worthy of that." "You already are, but I appreciate the evolution anyway." They spent the evening planning next steps. Adrian showed her the legitimate business ventures he was expanding: construction companies, import firms, real estate developments, all profitable without requiring criminal activity. He talked about the refugee program, how he wanted to partner with actual nonprofit organizations to create legal pathways. "It'll take years," he said, "but we have years. And I have you to remind me why it matters." 2 weeks later, the FBI formally accepted Adrian's cooperation agreement. In exchange for his testimony and ongoing intelligence about trafficking operations, he received immunity from prosecution for specified crimes and a guarantee that Lena would face no further investigation. Agent Chen looked furious when Rebecca delivered the news, but she was bound by her superior's decision. The bigger fish, the actual traffickers and predators, mattered more than one mobster trying to go legitimate. "You won," Rebecca said. "Both of you. Now, don't mess it up." Life settled into a new rhythm after that. Lena kept her job at the hospital, working the overnight shifts she'd grown to love. But now she came home to Adrian's mansion, to a man who'd made himself vulnerable for her, who was actively building a life they could share without constant fear. The transition wasn't smooth. Adrian struggled with relinquishing control, with trusting legal systems, with becoming someone other than the most dangerous man in any room. But he tried. Every day he tried. Lena struggled too, with accepting that her choices had irrevocably changed her life, with the lingering presence of FBI oversight, with the knowledge that Adrian's past would never fully disappear. But she chose it anyway. Every day, she chose it. 6 months after that first night in the ER, Lena stood in Adrian's study, their study now, looking at the city lights beyond the windows. She heard him enter behind her, felt his arms wrap around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About choices. About how one decision to treat a patient led to all of this." "Regrets?" "No, just amazement." She turned in his arms. 6 months ago, I was drowning, alone, going through motions. Now I'm building something real with someone who sees me completely." "I see you," Adrian agreed. "Every stubborn, brave, compassionate part of you." He kissed her forehead. "And I'm grateful every day that you saw me too, not just the monster, the person underneath. You're not a monster. You never were. Just someone who survived the only way you knew how. Past tense now, surviving versus living. Thanks to you, I'm learning the difference." They stood together in the quiet study, two people who'd found each other in chaos and chosen to build something from the wreckage. Adrian's empire was transforming. More legitimate businesses, fewer gray areas, cooperation with authorities on cases that mattered. The refugees he'd helped in darkness now received assistance through proper legal channels. It wasn't perfect. Some of his old associates resented the changes. Some of the legitimate business ventures struggled to become profitable. The FBI still watched, still required regular check-ins and intelligence reports. But it was real, and it was theirs. Lena kept her apartment in Astoria for another month before finally admitting she hadn't slept there in weeks. Adrian helped her move her few possessions to the mansion, giving her an entire wing to arrange however she wanted. Space that was hers, where she could retreat when his world felt overwhelming. She used her savings, supplemented by Adrian's careful financial planning, to finally pay off her student loans. The sense of freedom that came with being debt-free after so many years almost made her cry. Marcus eventually forgave her for the chaos she'd brought into their workplace, especially after she promised to never again disappear with mobsters who showed up bleeding. "Though I reserve the right to treat anyone who needs medical care," she'd added. "That's literally your job. I can't fault you for that." Rebecca became a friend beyond just a lawyer, checking in regularly to make sure Lena was truly happy and not being controlled or manipulated. "He's different with you," Rebecca observed one day over coffee. "Softer, more human. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I'm just being myself." That's exactly what he needs. A year after that first night, Adrian took Lena to dinner at a restaurant he'd acquired in the legitimizing process, a beautiful Italian place in Manhattan that served food his mother would have made. Intimate, warm, nothing like the cold fortress where they'd started. Over dessert, he pulled out a small box. "I know we've only been together a year. I know that's fast by conventional standards." He opened the box to reveal a ring, elegant, simple, perfect. "But I also know that you're the only person I want building a future with, the only one who makes me want to be better than I am." Lena's breath caught. "Adrian, I'm not asking you to decide tonight. Take all the time you need, but know that this is what I want. You, me. A life together built on honesty and choice, and the kind of love that doesn't require armor." His eyes held hers, vulnerable and fierce simultaneously. "Marry me, Lena Carter. Choose me again, permanently." She looked at the ring, at his hopeful face, at the life they'd built from blood and chance and impossible choices. A year ago, she'd been invisible, dying slowly of isolation and debt. One decision to treat a wounded patient had led to all of this: terror and joy, danger and safety. A man who'd transform his entire world just to be worthy of her. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. Thank you for seeing me, for choosing me, for making me want to be someone worthy of this. You already were. You just needed someone to notice. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony with only their closest people present. Dimitri stood as Adrian's best man, Rebecca as Lena's maid of honor. Marcus came despite his misgivings, crying when he saw how happy she looked. The vows were simple: truth, honesty, choice. Building together instead of just surviving separately. I promise to evolve, Adrian said, to keep choosing the kind of life worthy of you, to protect without controlling, to love without possession. I promise to see you, Lena replied, all of you, the darkness and the light, to choose you every day, knowing exactly what that means, to build something real from everything we've survived. They kissed as the sun set over New York, two people who'd found each other in chaos and chosen love anyway. Adrian's transformation continued. 2 years into their marriage, his legitimate businesses outpaced his remaining gray area operations. He became known in certain circles as a reformed criminal doing genuine good, helping refugees, funding hospitals in underserved neighborhoods, using his connections to fight trafficking. The FBI eventually closed their investigation, satisfied with his ongoing cooperation and the major cases he'd helped them build. Agent Chen even grudgingly admitted he'd become a valuable asset. Lena advanced at the hospital, eventually moving to a supervisory role where she could advocate for nurses and improve patient care. She still worked some overnight shifts, couldn't quite give up the adrenaline and purpose they provided, but balanced them with a life outside the hospital. They had their struggles. Adrian's past never fully disappeared. Old enemies occasionally surfaced. The FBI required ongoing cooperation. Some of Lena's family and friends never fully trusted him, but they chose each other anyway. Every day they chose each other. 5 years after that first night in the ER, Lena stood in their home, no longer a fortress, just a home, watching Adrian play with their daughter in the garden. A daughter named Hope, because after everything they'd survived, Hope felt like the only appropriate name. Adrian had transformed from the cold, dangerous man who'd refused anesthetic while being stitched up to someone who sang silly songs to a toddler and worried about child-proofing corners. Still intense, still fiercely protective, but human. Fully, completely human. He looked up and caught her watching, his smile soft and genuine. "What are you thinking about?" "About blood and chance and dangerous choices. About how saving one patient led to all of this." "Regrets?" "Not even one." Adrian scooped up their daughter and walked over, the three of them standing together in the sunlight. A family built from impossible circumstances. Love found in darkness. A future earned through honesty and choice, and the courage to keep choosing each other. "I love you," Adrian said quietly. "Thank you for seeing the man underneath the monster, for believing I could be someone worthy of this." Lena kissed him softly, their daughter giggling between them. "You always were. I just helped you remember." They stood together as the sun set, 3 lives intertwined by chance and choice, and the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. The overnight nurse and the criminal kingpin, building something beautiful from blood and broken pieces, choosing each other, always choosing each other, and that, more than anything else, made every dangerous decision worth it.